Hello, and welcome to another show of Talking Positive with Randy and Alan. I'm Alan,
And I'm Randy.
and today our special guest is Rachel James. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks for
thanks
having
for
me.
joining us.
Give us a little background on who you are and how you got here.
I'm a mom and a nurse and just kind of like a everyday sort of working gal. I met Alan through one of my best friends growing up. I work as a nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 13 years. Um, I have three kids, three boys, 16, 14, and 11. And I have a fiance. I have a dog. So I kind of just live, probably
The American
the
Dream.
normal suburban lifestyle, kind of just watching my kids grow up, working full time, and taking care of a household, and being a part of the community.
That's great. Now, you mentioned that we have a mutual friend and that's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And through conversations and everything, you and I have spoke about some of the challenges you've had from childhood until now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some of that with us, please?
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, one of the biggest things, and it's a weird. I when I was born, I had some weird bone defect with my leg. My parents were not medical, so I don't really know a lot of what happened. I haven't seen records, but when I was little, the story goes. This is the story around the whole one-legged thing.
Okay.
Uh, Leg broke when I was one. Parents took me to the emergency room, and there was something wrong with your shin bone. It's called your tibia, and there was an extra joint there. So I was in cast. I was having surgeries. I was in and out of the hospital from the age of one until I was about 2.5. They just finally amputated it. They gave my parents kind of a choice. Either she lives with a prosthetic leg, or she's probably going to be in a wheelchair until they find some kind of, cure for this that'll work for her. And so my parents made what I imagine to be a really difficult choice. But that's led to me having this life that I'm living. And I got fitted for a prosthetic when I was 3, and I've just always kind of lived with that. And it's made life different and probably more challenging in some ways, but also it's given me a lot of gifts and ability to meet great people and to be challenged, like you're saying. Like you develop this trust in yourself that whatever comes, you've been through worse and you're gonna make it through. So
What was it like once you were of age enough to kind of question your parents' decision? Did you ever do that? And did you wonder like what could have been or what other options there may have been? What was that like for you?
yeah, I think there were a lot of times that I felt that I struggled with it and felt maybe resentful or just kind of angry about my situation. Probably as a teenager, mostly. You get angry about the lot in life that you have, and you might just be angry in general. So I definitely thought about it then. And then I had kids, and I thought about, and you experience that love that you have for your children, and you're like, gosh, my parents really, I think, did me a solid, as far as the choice they made. I'm glad I'm able to be active and um, live a life that's pretty much pain free, and get about and kind of participate in life as an able bodied person would be able to. Um, so I'm grateful for that. But I don't think there's anything wrong either if they would have chosen the other way, of me being in a wheelchair. I think that you can have a really satisfying life living like that too. So it's just one of those forks in the road that I had no control over, but do the best with what you have.
We all know kids can be mean. Kids can be, especially when they don't understand what's going on around them.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience it? I mean, you started from childhood all the way till now. Did you ever have any such experiences?
Kids, luckily for me, there was a lot of staring and pointing, and that was hard as a kid. But I would say overwhelmingly, reactions were mostly positive. Um, there's a few that stand out as negative, and that makes me feel sad. But I feel like of the types of experiences I could have had, they were good. And when there were people who teased me lightheartedly, and for me, I've always kind of not taken myself too seriously, which has helped, I think, to just be like, yeah, you know,
I know that feeling.
yeah,
It
you're
is
just,
what it is. Yeah.
you know, yeah, peg leg, haha, you know, but I feel like that kind of disarms people a little bit too when they realize that you can just be, you're not going to be offended by little funny jokes. But there was never any really hardcore teasing or anything like that, thankfully. And as I've gotten older and the way that people have more representation in the media now, I've definitely have noticed. I mean, we of course we could always do better, but when I walk around now in the summer with shorts on or whatever, it is not the same as the mid '80s walking
Yeah.
around like that. You know, kids are used to seeing this stuff. They see it on TV. They see it in their TV shows, and I think that's a really beautiful thing that I like to focus on when I'm feeling down. Sometimes, you know, how far we've come.
You know, when you talk about feeling down, I have a niece that lost both her legs.
Oh.
And I'm sure for you and anyone in under those circumstances, you get to a point where you know you want to live. And for some people, that's as far as they can get. What was that for you to get over that hump?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think being that I was really young, I was under a lot of the influence of my parents at that time. And it was sort of my dad. I credit both my parents for different reasons, I guess I would say. I think my dad had a mentality, a kind of a grit mentality of, you know, like, we're not going to treat you different. Like, you're going to be held to standards and you're going to, you know, that was motivating for me of just like, yeah, I'm going to just live my life as well as I can. And I probably didn't get the best emotional support I could have, but I think I got a lot of motivation as far as like, you're not going to quit, you're going to get up, you're going to go out there and you're going to do your best. So that's probably what I needed at the time, you know. I think a lot of that got me out of the hump, just that was the attitude and the expectation of me from my parents. I think a lot of it might have been instinctual as a kid, of survival skills kicking in, of just like, you know, I got to make friends. I got to kind of do this thing called life. So maybe that's helpful. I think when you have a disability at different ages or something like that happens, it's very different.
Yeah.
As a kid, it was just kind of the water I swam in, you know. It was just like you just get on with it.
Our friend's mother was telling me you ran track in school.
I didn't run track, but I played basketball and I played volleyball. So and that's another thing that my dad really encouraged me in, was being in sports. And
Nice.
I think he really tried to, I remember him saying, it's not going to be your excuse in life. You know, we're not going to let you use this as an excuse to, I don't know if that's healthy or not, but that's how it was for me. And I think that did.
And it worked for you, correct?
It worked for me for a while. I think later on in life, the emotional impact had to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But I think it got me through those really hard years of when just what I needed was that push, just to push on.
You also told me one time that it wasn't always pleasant. There were some dark days.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get through those? If you want to share them, share them. If you don't, you don't have to.
Yeah, for sure. I think as a woman in the world, you know, we're already held to these standards of appearance and beauty. And so there's that layer that I think all women experience as a whole, and men in a different way, I'm sure. Just what's held up as beautiful and acceptable, and always feeling like the person who doesn't fit in that box. So you're having that layer of beauty, and then on the other hand, here you have this body difference, you know, a big body difference. So there were a lot of self-esteem issues, I think, that caused some darkness, like just feeling comfortable in intimate relationships and dating as a teenager, and developing my sense of worthiness over time that was independent of how I looked or having different things to base that feeling of self-esteem on. And also just like learning to love and accept my body as it is. That was kind of a longer journey of something that I had to overcome, that had dark times, that I felt really kind of bad about myself, and had like a lower self-worth that I had to kind of face and then figure out a way out of it.
And what was that way? How did you?
I just examined where those beliefs came from. I had to do a lot of examination and decide for myself how I wanted to feel about myself. And that would be the most important thing. And then also just taking the focus off myself a lot of times. I mean, working as a caregiver, I'm not the only one in the world suffering. Like, I see everybody deals with these challenges in their life. Mine's a little unique, I guess, maybe, but I see what people go through. And for me to just let other people know that they're not alone and that I'm in it with them, and there's no way that I've like arrived.
That would kind of be
your question.
That would kind of be my next question, just piggybacking off of that. In your profession, you're a nurse, correct?
Yeah.
How does what you are overcoming, and there's always, I guess, is always ongoing. Like you said, you haven't really arrived anywhere. It's just constant.
Yeah.
But how is it with you dealing with that and being able to help other people deal with any transgressions or any issues they may be facing? How do you go about helping them stay positive?
There are times that I will share my story with patients, and there are times that I won't. So as a baseline, I think as a nurse, like, I'm always there to provide the best care I can, and
Sure.
just not only on the physical level, but emotionally, and just trying to connect with my patients. It doesn't always work, but, just connecting with them and meeting them where they're at and being there for them and helping them when I can. I do see a lot of people who lose their limbs in my line of work. I work in surgery.
Oh,
So,
okay.
right, and in other areas that I've worked before, but there are times that I'll share my story if I think it's going to be useful, and there's times that I don't. There are many people who lose their legs later in life due to diabetes, and they may not have a great chance for being fit with a prosthetic or have, a realistic shot at being able to walk again. So I'm not going to, I made it through this and look at me, like, I can't do that with people like that, because that might be really painful to hear. So I have to use a lot of judgment when it comes to that. But when they're younger people that come through, I can definitely feel it out and see if it's going to be something that will stay in their hearts and give them some motivation for later on. Like, listen, this girl from, this is kind of nobody, but she's making do with it. I can make do with it. Then I'm able to do that. And then caring for people also just helps me to not wallow in any kind of self-pity, and, get my head out of my behind if I'm feeling down about myself. I think you probably experience that too. And
No, sir.
yeah,
Definitely.
the way that you reach out to people and you kind of make people feel seen about what's going on with them.
Did you decide you wanted to be a nurse or in the medical profession because of what you had experienced?
I think there was a part of that, definitely. Some of it was just self-discovery as I was in college, realizing what I liked and what I didn't like. I really love science.
I was going to say, you must like science and math.
Love science. I have my first degree in psychology. I love neuroscience. I love the mind-body connection. I love, and I think that comes into play a lot with my my life story, I guess, of just being able to question those beliefs that bring you down, right? Learning about cognitive behavioral therapy and these things that we can change our mindsets to live a life that feels a lot better. So that's been helpful. So love science, was into research heavy, and then I got a job at the Department of Psychiatry at Wayne State, and we were doing MRI research on kids with psychiatric disorders. So I was doing a lot of data processing, but I was also working a lot of the front end of things where I would set up appointments with families and interview these kids and keep appointments, and I really loved working with people. And when I realized that, I was, and that I also wanted to have a family. It was kind of like nursing offered this work-life balance. It offered this outlet for me to help people and use the science that I love. So it really is kind of a culmination of all the things I really love.
How was it when you first felt love? I mean, you have 3 boys, and I know that was
Yeah.
amazing for you. So, what was that like? Finally being in a spot where you could feel things that maybe you thought was missing from you early, but how was that experiencing love for the first time?
Like the love between my children and I, or the love between in
Both.
romantic relationships?
Yeah, both.
It was great. I've always, I love people. I love relationships. You know, my kids are like my favorite part of my whole life, right? So that's great. Unfortunately, I am divorced, so that was a really a painful thing that I had to go through. The stuff that I was kind of talking about, like the darker emotional stuff, the early onset trauma, like a lot of that, the coping mechanisms I had at the get-go were kind of grit, you know, work past it, and then I had all this emotional baggage, you know, from that. So I think a lot of this trauma that I carried into my relationship really kind of contributed to the demise, but also ultimately to the healing, because it became very aware of that. So love for me early on in my marriage, everything was good, as relationships often are, and it felt good to have healthy relationships with people. And as I've gotten older now, I think I've just gotten wiser and more self-aware about how to be a good partner and to have good expectations out of my partner and know more of what I need. So relationships have been an evolution for sure, and they've gotten better as I've gotten older. But feeling the love with my kids and having a family, those are blessings that I never really knew if I would have. But I don't know. That part of my life has worked out for me, I think, and I'm really grateful for that.
Well, I think you also have a great personality. I remember we were at the Tiger game, and as you were wearing shorts that day and you're walking up the stairs and you saw a gentleman who also had a prosthetic, and you look at him and go, "Oh, I like your leg," you know?
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, yeah, it's just about to say the same thing."
Yeah.
Did you experience a lot of those situations during, like, throughout life? I mean, do you see people and...
Oh yeah, you'll have people come up to you, and I come up to other people too. You know, especially if they seem approachable, and get to meet fun people, hear their stories. Everybody's got the coolest stories about how they lost their limb. You know, I feel like mine's on the lame end of the spectrum, but you know, motorcycle accidents or
Mine, I
all
was
the
just, 2 years old and boom.
yeah, all the military vets out there, like people who have great stories. So yeah, I do have a lot of interactions with people that.
Were you ever part of a group, a support group, or
Yeah.
organization where...
Yeah, actually, I was. When I was in 4th grade, I think my parents started to see. Well, let's see. The story was that the school nurse approached them, and told them about a summer camp, that was for amputee kids. It was in Pittsburgh, and so my parents drove me out there, dropped me off. It was 4 days, 3 nights and 4 days, at like a YMCA camp. So you do all the regular stuff, but you were with a bunch of amputees, kids, and the counselors, most of them were amputees too. So that was one of the first times in my life that I felt a sense of not being the oddball, you know? Like, wow, like that was just a life-changing experience. And I went there till I was 18.
Wow.
Every summer, and then there was a ski camp too, so I would go to ski in the winter. I learned how to ski, and had a lot of great role models out of that experience. So that was something I was really fortunate. They did end up shutting it down eventually. I think there's been a reboot, but there are some in Michigan too that I've looked into getting involved with. But my life is a bit busy now, and I haven't had the time to do that, but that's something I would like to do eventually.
When you learned to ski, was it with the prosthetic or without the prosthetic?
Learning was with it on, but I did spend one of the years learning how to do it without.
Wow.
That was so hard.
Oh,
They
wow.
use these things called outriggers.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those?
Yep.
They have little skis on the bottom.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the arm canes. I did that probably like a full day of that, and that was intense. It takes
Wow.
all the muscle on that leg. Ooh, I remember the burn, and that was probably more than 20 years ago. so yeah, that was
That's
those
good, though.
were very formative and important experiences to me. So
Cool. So, anything on the horizon that you want to do that you haven't done yet? Anything you want to try?
I feel pretty satisfied as far as like risk taking behaviors. I don't want to ski anymore. I'm kind of like, just trying to ease into this middle age period with few injuries and trying to take care of myself. But I find a lot of enjoyment in just my home life, just watching my kids grow up and knowing that those moments, they're going to be gone before I know it. It's starting to, I have a junior in high school. That's my oldest. So I'm really starting to feel the passing of time speed up.
Yeah.
So I'm just really trying to slow down and enjoy them, watch them, be there for them create a really supportive environment, especially after going through, the divorce 4 years ago. My kids are so amazing and resilient, and I just want to keep encouraging that with them. So that's my biggest focus now. I really enjoy traveling. I've picked up a photography hobby that
Right.
I've been, dabbling in here and there and making time for myself.
Well, you ride bicycle too, don't you?
Yeah. I have a bike, and I'm more of a walker now. I have a dog, so we walk every
Okay.
day. And I mean, I'd like to do a lot more traveling. I just got back from a big European trip with my
Nice.
fiance. That was amazing, and
He wasn't her fiance when they left.
yeah, we got engaged while we were out there. We went
Nice,
to Italy and
nice.
Greece, and so I actually am working on applying for dual citizenship as an Italian citizen.
Oh,
So I
wow.
qualify for that through their lineage program because I have a great grandfather who was born in
oh,
Italy
nice.
and never naturalized. So I have this whole side project going on, and love to
Oh,
go
that's
back
cool.
there
Yeah.
and possibly spend time there. My oldest wants to go to school there, so
Wow, that would
as
be
a citizen,
great.
he could get
That'd
some.
be great. When the kids were born, obviously you're not going to tell them right away or explain to them. At what age did you explain to them what mommy had, or
Yeah, I think there was just like a natural. They would see it, and they would ask questions at that question asking age.
Yeah.
3 and 4.
Yeah.
So they were explained it, and it's just been normal to them. I think it's definitely shaped them to be more compassionate kids.
Oh, good.
They're my older two went to a school where they also house like an autism school for kids who need more care, and so they've grown up seeing people in a lot that the expression of humanity is very diverse, and that's a good thing,
Okay.
and I think that knowing that there's a lot of different ways to be human is something that I see my kids understanding and being compassionate about, which makes me really proud of them. So I think they ask questions, they understood it, they see other people in the world that are different, and it probably doesn't faze them as much, I would imagine, since they're like, oh
because
yeah,
it's part of their life.
yeah,
Right.
I've seen somebody like that, I see people like this and like that, and we try to, that's kind of a tenet that I've brought them up with, that I was brought up with too, it kind of gets passed down.
You didn't have siblings, did you?
I have one sister.
Oh, one
yeah, a
sister.
younger sister. She's 5 years younger.
And how did she interact with you when you were growing up?
We were, sisters, so we hated each other for a while. We were best friends for a while.
Typical.
But
Right.
nothing in
Yeah.
particular with your leg or anything?
No, I imagine it was like her experience. I'd love to hear more about it. I think it's difficult being the sibling of a child with special needs, however you want to say that.
Yeah.
I don't think I was. I think that's probably its own experience in itself. But she's always been loving to me, and if anything, she kind of had to deal with my angry teen self, in a way that might have not been fair to her.
Right.
Right. Right.
But we are really, really close now.
She lives in the area.
No, she doesn't, but that's probably why we're so close.
It's another
Makes
reason
sense.
to travel too.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, she's great.
Well,
that's good.
yeah, I just say thank you so much for joining us. I mean, man, this was a very good conversation.
Yeah,
And,
I just had one more question. What advice would you give to someone that is going through something like this, or has a child going through something
Oh gosh, yeah.
this type of challenge?
First of all, just that my heart goes out to them. I know it's stressful, My kids have their own challenges too, and I've, as a parent, I've had to weather those things, and just it can be really heartbreaking. It can be really difficult. I would say reach out, don't think that you have to go through it alone. Support, like talking about those camps growing up, and if you have a child that's facing something like that, I think finding them community where they feel supported and loved and normalized to an extent is really good. Keep your expectations high of them, but also give them a lot of empathy and emotional support. I think that's something that I wish I would have gotten a little bit more of. Just maybe just a little bit more validation of like, yeah, this is hard, and it doesn't feel fair all the time. And, you can feel angry about it, but you still have to kind of pick up the pieces and move on at the end of the day and figure out what to do with all that anger and energy. How are you going to channel that? How are you going to make the world a better place because of it? So yeah, getting support, giving yourself support, learning how to really talk to yourself with kindness and accept. I think the more you love and accept yourself, the more you do that with other people too. But yeah, I think isolating is probably, I've been down that road before, and it hasn't been a helpful one for me. So
That's great. Rachel, you've been great. We really appreciate
Tremendous.
your time.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so
And
much.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
And,
I feel really honored that you guys would even think about me. So
And,
Yeah.
well, no, we
Great
feel honored
people,
that
great
you wanted to be.
personality. Yeah,
Yeah.
we love it. So thank you
Awesome.
for joining us.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
All right.
If you'd like to be a guest on our show, Talking Positive with Randy and Alan, you can call us at 313-454-1104 or email us at talkingpositivepod@gmail.com. Go out there and have a positive week.
See you next time.